Hello and welcome to Untangle Your Brand. It's so great to have you on the course. Thank you very much for joining me on this branding journey. And we're going to sort of start with just a general introduction to branding, go into branding a little bit more deeper before we get on to all the rest of the sessions about insight story. So hopefully you'll find this really informative. It's quite light on the work. There are worksheets to go with this. All the information that I'm going to say is there as well. And there's a few simple tasks for you to think about as you go through. So it doesn't matter if you haven't downloaded the worksheets yet, you can get into those. There's different ways of actually accessing those that you'll see in the learning portal. But really what I want to start off is talk about branding. Now, sort of branding is really, really important to me, as you can imagine. That's why I created a course. But I always ask this question first. I always ask people about their music. I always ask, what is your favorite band, musical artist? Now, I ask that question for a reason, because I know that if I can get people talking in an engaged way about something like music, like, I love Adam and the Ants and this particular album, Kings of the Wild Frontier, had it when I was 10 years old, then they can talk about it with a lot of passion. You can't talk about music, it could be an artist book or a film. And just sort of listening to people tell their stories. I can tell you stories about how I used to listen to that on the bus, how I remembered all the lyrics, how there's actually designs in there that I used to copy and scribble at school. But really what I'm trying to then get to is that sort of say it in a few words. Can you say what you love in 4 words or less? And for me, what I love about Adam the Ants is the pirate glamour punk rock. And that's sort of, really reducing every emotion I have about that record into a few words. And that's what we're trying to do with brands, really, is to try and reduce down the waffle, try and cut out all the unnecessary fluff that we talk about to really get to the heart of what a brand is. So the first task, and it's more of a fun thing, this is to actually think about what is your favorite band, book or film, musical artist, whatever it might be, just something that you're really, really passionate about, and write the long form version of it. Write as much as you want. Probably don't spend a long time. You don't need to write War and Peace on it, but write 50, 80, 100 words about why you love what you love. And then just try summarizing it in 4 words. And again, I think, most people should find that really easy to actually sort of do the long form and then think of the summary. And that's what I want you to do with the first task, is find those 4 words, the pirate glamour punk rock. It doesn't matter if it's 5, if it's 3, even better. It's just a few words that actually capture the emotion that you have with that book or film. So what is a brand? It's a really important thing to sort of really understand, what I mean by brands. And everyone has a slightly different version of this. And what I mean by a brand is all about the emotional connection that you have with a product or service that makes you think that you've made the right choice. There's so many different options out there. There's something for everyone, but you have made the right choice when you connected with a brand and you feel good about it. So I'll buy Adidas, not Nike. Nothing wrong with Nike as a brand. Adidas is just my preferred choice. And we're trying to ensure that your business is the preferred choice for the customers that you want to attract, the people that really want what you've got and they need it. And we do that through sort of several different techniques, of which this course is going to help you understand more. I think when you start thinking about brands and businesses, everyone sort of starts with this, we've got an idea, I've got an idea for a business, I need a logo and I'll put it on a website. And you absolutely have to do that. You need to get out there, you need to get visible, you need to prove the concept, you need to start building an audience. So don't be afraid of that. Don't think you have to have done every single thing before you start putting yourself out there. The thing is, you haven't created a brand, and you might need to redo some of the work. You might need to evolve it, but getting yourself out there is really important, because as you're going to see in this course, there's a lot more to actually creating it as a meaningful brand. And none of that has got much to do with logos, really. The way that I go through this is to talk about the insight, which we'll do in session 2, the story, which we'll do in session 3, and then the engagement, verbal, session 4, visual, session 5. And it's really important to understand those concepts so that you also know where you need to focus as a business and a brand. So what I've also created is a thing that I call the donut, the brand donut. And it's a way of kind of like a little model to actually think about the most important bits in that insight and story phase, the vision, the position, offer, values, mission. And this course will help you identify and write all of those bits of content so that you've got a real clear understanding of what your brand is all about. And most importantly, have this jammy center, this glue that binds it all together, this brand core that summarizes everything in just a few words, so that you can actually then go forward and engage with your brand in a much more memorable way. So the next task is really just to think about, some of your favorite brands. We know a little bit more about branding now, and just, write down, what is your favorite brand? Maybe draw a logo of it. Think about a product you always buy or something you always remember, and then try and summarize it in a few words. And I'll show you this with Adidas. So Adidas, I've always mentioned, is, there's the logo, and it's a brand that I love and I wear them every day, really. The product I always buy are these blue Sambas. 9 times out of 10 it's a blue Samba. Sometimes it may be grey, not very often. But what do I remember most about the product is the blue stripes, the 3 blue stripes. It's not a logo, it's a visual property. It's something that really sticks in my mind. So think about your brands that you love. What is it that you remember? And then 4 or 5 words to describe why I love it. Classic, casual, cool, comfortable. Now, if you do this with one of the brands that you love, you'll start to understand a little bit more about how you're engaging with those brands beyond just thinking about the logo. So I would give that a go. Do it once, maybe do it twice. If you're really enjoying it, do it many times, but just sort of get into thinking about brands beyond the logo. So in terms of where you should focus as a business, this course is going to cover everything, but I created what I call a score app to help you think about the insight, the story, and the engage. And it's probably worth kind of downloading this. The link's in the portal as well. But do the brand check now so that you've got a basis of where you are with your branding journey and actually where you are at the end of this. So it's really good to sort of see how you score yourself against these 3 areas. And I think, we're going to cover everything and more, but actually knowing if you need to do more work in the insight or whether it's in the engage area will really help you and focus on the things. You do need to go through it in a logical order, though. You can't just start with engagement, go to the insight, and then do a bit of story. You kind of get tangled up again. But really think about doing that brand check now, so you've got something to measure against as the course develops. The next thing I want to talk about is creativity. Now, creativity is really important to me. Branding, design, all that stuff that I've done all my career, creativity is at the heart of it. And it shouldn't be something that people are afraid of. I'd meet people who go, I can't be creative. Everyone can be creative. And there's no secret to being creative. And there's this book that, I read probably 25 years ago, and it's called A Technique for Producing Ideas. I'll put a link in the course material. Written by James Webb Young in about 1930. I reckon it's hard to sort of tell, but he was an American advertising guru, and he wrote this book. It's very short. It's about 80 pages, really big text, really, really kind of light on content. But if you haven't got time to read the book, I've summarized it in 5 words. Gather, think, forget, connect, and craft. And these are the 5 principles around being more creative. And the chances are you've been doing this all along without really realizing it. So don't fear the creativity. So what do I mean by gather? It's really important to be reading, seeing, doing, get out, get and see the world, gain that knowledge, get more input into any subject. And it doesn't really matter. It doesn't need to just be about your subject, but having a wider knowledge, gathering information is a really, really valuable thing to be doing all the time. The next thing is when you start to do a specific creative task and you've kind of done some insight, you've done some gathering, is actually to kind of consider every idea. I mean, this whole thing about, sometimes the first idea is the best idea, but you don't know that until you've had another 100 ideas. So really kind of push the ideas and the thinking within the time limit that you've got. Do it individually, groups, just don't stop thinking about the ideas, because the more ideas you have, the more chance you've got of creating better ideas later. So the next stage, once you've done the gather and the think, is actually to forget. And this is sort of a classic thing, really, that I suspect everyone does it. Have that idea when they're in the bath or having a shower, when they're doing something completely disrelated to the task that is in hand. And this is because we've done some gathering, we've done some thinking. Our brains can't stop thinking. So you'll go and have new ideas. You'll incubate something fresh. As you're doing that, I like to go for a pint. Some people go for a walk, some people go for a jog. But whatever it is you do, really do stop and give yourself that time to let things percolate in the background. Do some of the insight and gathering and the thinking one afternoon, then come back to it the next morning rather than just going through it. And also, make sure that you allow those things to happen naturally, whatever is the right time for you to do it. Because what will happen is that you'll connect different ideas and literally you'll have that eureka moment. Those different ideas you've had will start to connect in more interesting, exciting, novel ways. And that's great, because then you've got an original idea that you can work with. The thing is that you've got to then craft it. You've got to make that the most beautiful thing ever. And I think this is where sometimes people go, right, I've got the idea, stick it out. Now, this is not about procrastination. It's just making sure it's refined, share it with people, develop it, make it as good as possible, because then people will engage with it in a much deeper way. So that's kind of like the secrets to creativity. Like I say, probably been doing it most of the time, but as you're going through the course, I really want you to think about that and know, have I done some gathering? Have I done some thinking? Have I paused? Have I actually then kind of like created something new? And have I allowed it to be as beautiful as it can be? So the next part that we're going to talk about is actually how to use some of the creative techniques in your business. And what I talk about here is about mind mapping your business, and whatever business you're doing, this can apply to any business. And I want you to think about this. And again, the reason I'm saying it at the start is because the more you do this throughout the process, this is a task that you don't just do, finish, move on. This is something that you will be constantly doing, is thinking about how your business is. And I'm going to have a suggestion of how to do that. So you've all got unique business categories and activities. I don't know what they are, but for the purposes of this whole course, I've created a fictitious cheese company. Just, people love cheese. I like cheese. So I'm going to show all the principles about this as if it was a cheese company. So if you are creating a brand for a cheese company, you're at a very strong advantage. If you're not, this will really help you anyway, because it's going to show you the principles with a subject that we all know quite a bit about. So imagine I'm creating a mind map for a cheese company, and I'm starting to think creatively about it. The initial things are what we call the route one stuff. What first comes into your head? Cheese knife, cheese board, cheese spread. And these are things that, that's fine, but it's also going to be quite random quite quickly. So what I'm encouraging you to do, to think about your business in these 4 segments. Think about some of the practical stuff that you know about your industry, your market. What are the practical stuff? So cheese, it's got different names, it's different uses, there's different types, it's hard, it's soft, all these sort of things. Think about, going further into those physical stuff. What are the shape, what size, what are the colors associated with whatever industry you're doing. It gets a bit abstract, but no, think about the factual stuff that you might know about. So, cheese has been around for 4,000 years. There's 1,800 different types. What are the hard facts that you know about it? What about your industry? And finally, what are the more emotional things that you know about? So again, cheese, Tom and Jerry cartoons, the moon's made of cheese. What are the more sort of abstract things that you can have in an association? And just write them down. Just however you want to write them down, scribble on a bit of paper, keep post-it notes, keep digital notes or whatever. But every time you have a new idea about your business, try and list them under these practical, emotional, physical, and factual things. And then we can use that later as we're developing other marketing, other messaging, other words, names, images, etc., campaigns that will actually help you with your brand. And then the final task that I want you to think about in this introduction to branding is that this is the must-do task, by the way. This is the one that, it's hard to move forward unless you've done this one. And it's all about thinking about your vision. And you need that before you can really create a brand. If you haven't got a vision for the business, it becomes very difficult really quickly. It's like setting sail for something and not knowing, just getting in a boat and going. You need to know roughly what direction you're going to travel. So do this work. This is the number one thing. And kind of typically when people start thinking about a vision, where will you be in 5 years? People talk about the kind of the obvious stuff like profitable, number of people, big office, big chair, all those sort of kind of again sort of route one type things. But I want you to think a little bit deeper. Why does that matter? Really go into this. Keep asking yourself why, like a slightly annoying child, and then you'll find actually a much deeper reason that will resonate with you, and therefore resonate with your audience at a much deeper level. So it's really important to do this. There's a worksheet and it takes you through there. So it says, why, and then what is the vision? So once you've answered all those questions as many times as you can, if you only get to 3 and you've cracked it, fine. But the more you don't do it 30 times, but the more that you get through to that deeper reason, the better your vision is going to be. And then the final thing to do is then just summarize it. You'll have a whole bunch of words. Again, a lot of what we're trying to do is to reduce this down and have as few words as possible. So a vision statement is probably around 15 words or so, maybe 20. And I'm going to give you an example of this in terms of the cheese business. So if you think about a cheese company, so yeah, number one might be want to be successful, big turnover, highly profitable, all those sort of business sanity things that people do. So, but why does that matter? Well, you ask the CEO, so we can make greater cheese. The more money we have, the greater the cheese can be. So why do you want to do that? Well, we want to shape the future of cheese. Okay, great. So why do you want to do that? Because we want to nourish people across the world with cheese. Cheese is really important. So why do you want to do that? Because we want to make the world better with cheese. And it's about going into these extra levels of depth. Now, that may all sound a bit fanciful and silly, but all these statements are from cheese company websites. This is what people are saying about they want their vision for their business to be. And getting to that more elevated vision is going to have that deeper emotional connection for you. So if I was summarizing that in a sentence, the vision for the cheese company is to nourish people across the world and shape the future of cheese. And I look forward to kind of maybe if you drop in the comments or in any of the social, seeing what the vision for your business is and how deep that goes. So like I say, all the tasks are to sort of do, I mean, particularly the mind map, it's an ongoing thing. So I'll do that throughout this course. I think do some of the easy ones like favorite band and brands, because they just get you more into the mindset of doing this. But doing that vision course, doing that vision before you move on to the next part of the course is really important, because we're going to build from that. It's the top of the donut, and that's the thing that we're going to use as we go forward. So I hope you enjoyed session 1. Session 2 coming up is all about the insight, and I look forward to seeing you on the course next time.